Polo, 1254, January 8th, 1324, was a Venetian merchant, explorer, and writer who gained fame for his extensive travels through Asia, especially his time at the court of Kublai Khan, the Mongol Emperor of China. Born into a family of merchants in the Republic of Venice, Marco was introduced to the world of trade at an early age, as his father, Niccolo Polo, and uncle, Maffeo Polo, were experienced traders who had already made contacts in the East. Early life and background. Marco was born in Venice, likely in 1254. His mother died when he was young, and he was raised by extended family while his father and uncle embarked on their first journey to Asia. The Polos ventured into territories little known to Europeans, traveling through Central Asia and eventually meeting Kublai Khan, the ruler of the Mongol Empire. By the time Niccolò and Maffeo returned to Venice, Marco was a teenager, and soon after their return, the family prepared for another journey to the Mongol court, this time with Marco. The journey to China. In 1271, at the age of 17, Marco Polo set out with his father and uncle on what would become a 24-year-long journey. They traveled overland through the Middle East, crossing deserts and mountains along the Silk Road. Marco documented his impressions of the various cultures and lands they encountered, including Persia, modern-day Iran, India, and the regions of Central Asia. Their final destination was the court of Kublai Khan in modern-day Beijing, China, then known as Khan Balik. Kublai Khan took a particular liking to Marco, who impressed him with his intelligence, adaptability, and knowledge of languages. For the next 17 years, Marco served as an emissary for the Khan, undertaking diplomatic and administrative missions throughout the Mongol Empire. He was one of the few Europeans to travel as far as China, and he explored vast parts of Asia that were largely unknown to his contemporaries. Return to Venice. In 1295, after many years of service to Kublai Khan, Marco Polo returned to Venice with his family, laden with riches and stories. Soon after his return, he found himself caught in a conflict between Venice and the rival city-state of Genoa. Marco was captured during a naval battle and imprisoned. It was during his imprisonment that he dictated the story of his travels to a fellow prisoner, Rustichello da Pisa, who wrote down the tales in a book known as The Travels of Marco Polo. Legacy and influence. The Travels of Marco Polo became one of the most important travelogues in history, offering Europeans their first detailed look at the culture, wealth, and technological advancements of the East. Although some contemporaries were skeptical of his accounts, Marco's descriptions of the vast riches, cities, and cultures of Asia left a lasting impression on Europe. His book inspired future explorers, most notably Christopher Columbus, who carried a copy of the Travels with him during his voyages to the New World. Marco Polo died in Venice in 1324. His travels bridged a gap between Europe and the East, marking a significant moment in the history of exploration. Though some of his accounts were embellished or misunderstood, his journey remains a cornerstone in the history of exploration and the opening of the world to greater global exchange. Controversies. While Marco Polo's stories are famous, some historians have questioned whether he actually traveled to all the places he described, particularly China. Critics point out that his accounts lack mention of key Chinese cultural practices, such as tea drinking and the Great Wall. Nevertheless, most scholars believe that he did travel to Asia and provided a largely accurate depiction of his experiences, even if some details were exaggerated or borrowed from other travelers. Conclusion. Marco Polo's life and legacy as an explorer, writer, and emissary continue to captivate historians and the general public alike. His accounts provide an invaluable window into the world of 13th century Asia and its interactions with Europe, making him one of history's most famous explorers.